Hi, welcome to Theology Thursday, a positive place of prayer and conversation for all people. I am Matt Hartley of the Interfaith Center of Northeast Florida. And just to remind you that Theology Thursday is a partnership between the OneJax Institute of UNF and the Istanbul Cultural Center and the Interfaith Center of Northeast Florida. We are really glad that you've joined us on this Thursday evening to be together. And we're especially delighted to be welcoming those who will be leading us tonight, who you'll meet in just a moment. Basma and Leslie, thank you for being with us. We're grateful for all of you who are on our YouTube live channel joining us. We invite your comments and your questions there with the video. We'll have a time of conversation later on with these leaders about how faith and spirituality are nurturing us. So if you have questions that arise from the things they say or comments, things that are sparking for you, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you for being here. Your time is precious, and it's a gift that you would join us tonight. Now, to begin, I'm going to ask my friend Basma to begin, to introduce herself. She's going to share a practice from her tradition with us and tell us a little bit about how faith is nurturing her in this time. Basma?
Thank you so much, Matt, and the Istanbul Cultural Center and OneJax, and everyone who have been organizing Thursday's theology. I think we just finished the holy month of Ramadan, and it's been a blessing to celebrate the Ramadan with our families actually at home. This year was more special because my girls were able to fast. My oldest one, who's 11 years old, this is her first year. She did 29 days of fasting. So that was a really big celebration. I think it's also helped because she's home and she is not exposed to the sun. So that helps a lot. And my 7 years old, who it's so funny because in the beginning she asked me how many hours we almost gonna fast, and I told her around 16 hours. So she did the math and she said, then I will fast 1 hour and 6 minutes. And I told her, okay, let's try. And actually, as soon as Ramadan started from the first day, she was able to fast 15 days, which is it wasn't expected at all. We celebrated really well this year, even though I know it's hard. We have been home, but it's also helped us learning more about our kids and how we engage them in our faith. And then we had the amazing celebration of Eid al-Fitr, which was 3 days of celebration also from home. Even though our mosques here did special, let's say, treatment. We had a drive-through gift for the kids, and we say idea, which is a really small amount of money that given to the kids to celebrate their break fasting after Ramadan. So I think all of that was really great, and I'm really thankful that we went through the process, and we have been praying over and over that we will, as we went through this together, that we will pass it together. I really want to thank you, but also, I think one of the prayers that have been always that I take with me, it's actually a prayer that was, if from my understanding, it was twice written in the Quran. Once was for the Prophet Musa, and the second one was for Prophet Muhammad, and it's both talked about Rabbi shrah li sadri, which means God explain my breast and ease my work. So it's a prayer that came to many prophets, and I think that's what we always try to teach our kids, that with God everything gonna be easy.
Wonderful. Thank you, Basma. We appreciate you being here with us tonight so much. We want to welcome everyone who has joined us on our YouTube live channel. We want to say hi to Janelle and to Mary and everyone else who is viewing with us. Please, we invite your participation so you can leave comments and questions that you have for our presenters beneath or beside the YouTube live video in the comments. Now, next up, I want to invite my colleague from UNF, Leslie Kaplan. Welcome, Leslie.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I'm really glad to be here. Thank you to the Istanbul Cultural Center and OneJax, Matt, to you, and Sal, Kyle, and also to Basma. It's always fun to be with you, even if it's only virtually. So glad to be here. Shall I just launch in here?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so when I was asked to participate in this, it gave me a few minutes of reflection because I'm Jewish, but I'm really more culturally Jewish than anything else. And so I had to really think about the ways in which my faith has been a part of this whole quarantine thing. And I realized that it was a really wonderful experience, actually, because what I realized is how deep it actually goes, and how, although I don't think of myself as somebody who's spends a lot of time actively practicing, that my Jewish values are very deeply embedded. And so this was actually a really great experience. So I'm very happy for the opportunity. And thinking about what Basma was saying about the holiday that they just finished, where they were fasting, it reminded me that it seems so very long ago now, but Passover is one of the Jewish holidays where we fast in a modified way, similar to the way that Christians do with Lent. So we have a big meal, but we don't have any bread. So there's no bread or products made with flour. And that was at the very beginning of the quarantine. And one of the features of that holiday is that everybody is welcome. It's one of these moments where we actually open the door to allow Elijah to come in for our part of our celebration. And I had invited several UNF students to join me for Passover this year, and was really excited. And then ended up not even just being with my own family, but only with being part of my family, because we were a little bit scattered. And so we ended up doing Passover via Zoom, which did not feel to me like it was in the spirit of Passover. But other areas I realized have really made me connect more deeply to my Jewish faith. One is the idea of rest. So Shabbat, Saturday, is supposed to be our day of rest. It starts Friday evening and then lasts through until sunset on Saturday. And it's very hard to observe that in our busy lives. You know, Friday I come home from work and don't have any time to prepare and, launch into a busy weekend of activities. But all of our weekends have been peaceful. And in fact, I started baking challah, which is not something I normally have time to do because I have to start early enough on Friday. So that's one way that I feel like my Judaism has really been activated in some ways, observing that. And another piece is gratitude. And I was thinking about all the ways that how lucky I am. One piece of the Passover service that is a favorite for many people is the singing of a song called Dayenu, which translates to "It would have been enough." And it's a whole list of all of the different miracles that happened as part of the Passover story, which is the Exodus from Egypt. It's that story. And, if you had just done this, that would have been enough. If you just done this, that would have been enough. And so really that whole thing is an expression of gratitude. And that's probably the biggest thing that I've been feeling during this time is I realize how incredibly lucky I am. I still have my job. My family is safe. I have a comfortable home. I have plenty of food. And not everybody has that. And it's made me realize how incredibly lucky that I am. And I feel like that combination of more time to reflect and really a visceral recognition of how lucky I am has made me live in the moment much more, because I don't know, who knows which day it's going to be that somebody in my family encounters the virus and maybe life changes. And so that's really made me connect much more deeply.
Wonderful. Thank you, Leslie. I'm not cutting you off, am I?
No,
All
I
right.
was giving you a pause.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, we want to welcome everyone who's joined us on YouTube Live. We're so glad that you're spending Theology Thursday with us. I'm going to toss things now over to my colleague, Kyle Reese, who'll lead us in some discussion.
Well, thanks for everyone. I would echo Matt's gratitude for those who are joining us on YouTube Live, and we would invite your comments or your reflections. But I want to begin our conversation with you, Basma. One theme that was incredibly clear in the faith practice that you shared is how important it is to pass that faith tradition on to the next generation. And any of us who are faith practitioners care about passing those things that are important to us on to the next generation. So talk a little bit about how you've gotten your children to this point and sort of your intentionality of how you continue to pass on faith traditions and belief systems to your children.
Yes, actually, it's similar to what happened to me. It was passed to me through my parents, and that's how I loved actually being a Muslim. It's by the way that my parents taught it to me, because sometimes I think it's also who lead and help you build your faith. It's also help. Sometimes leaders could really make you feel opposed from that faith, or actually they do let you get closer to the faith you really want to be part of. So I feel like always I appreciate my parents who always handed me books and let me read and share the stories. And actually, one of the things that I remember when I was a kid, my dad always shared, like I think in Christianity we hear Bible stories. And in the Muslim community, we say prophecy stories, and pretty much we learned and we grow up hearing it. And I did put really a short minute together to explain how I learned and how most of my prayers and dua is through the prophets' dua and prayers. So just to give you a really short description about who I am talking about. So as some of you and maybe most of you know, prophets are selected individuals who Muslims believe that Allah has sent to various civilizations from Adam alayhi salam to the last prophet, which is Prophet Muhammad. That's what majority of Muslims believe. These prophets are meant to show good examples to human on the purpose of their creation and also on the concept of God itself. In total, in Muslims believe that there are around 124,000 prophets being sent to mankind, but we are only obligated in the Quran to learn about 25 prophets of them. And many of our prophets, if not all, went through really hardship. Prophets are also human beings, are by the best of example of a human for us to follow and emulate. Their stories on the challenges are being documented in the Quran as a proof that they existed. We emulate them by making dua during hardship and need in order to achieve peace and success in our lives as well. And actually through reading their stories in my childhood, I learned about their dua, I learned about their prayers, and that's what we normally use in our daily basis. One of the du'as that I already shared with my kids, but also I always say, I remember the first time I was going, I think it was in elementary school, when I went to, I didn't like history in that time, and I had a test, and my mom told me, hey, read this verse, it will help you. And it's in the Quran, it's a Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli, which means, God, expand my breast, and Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri, and ease my work. Wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani means untie my tongue, which is actually what Prophet Musa asked God to do for him. وَاحْلُلْ عُقْدَةً مِّن لِسَانِي يَفْقَهُ قَوْلِي, to make me say the right thing and do the right things. So that's actually was one of the first verses that I used in one of my tests, and I did really good at it. And I came back to my mom like, hey, I did really good at the test. But she's like, well, it's not just that you said the prayer, but you tried your best to do good at the test too. And that's what God's telling us. It's not just to depend on the prayers, but also to do and try to do good. So it's all could match, and it will make it work together.
Thank you, Basma. We want to welcome Kimberly, another who has joined us on YouTube Live. Basma mentioned this, Leslie, and I think that you mentioned it as you led us as well. Part of the things we know about practitioners of our faith traditions is that, as difficult as it is, it's difficult times that really bring out those things that are important to us. So I'm wondering, as you have experienced COVID-19 and all of the things that you've gone through, and you've done a wonderful job expressing gratitude, but I'm wondering, are there comparable times that you've gone through in your life where there have been struggle and challenge, and you've sort of reconnected with that deep faith tradition that you carry and that carries you?
Yeah, so it's funny that you said that, because the thing that I'm thinking about, we lost my father-in-law at the very beginning of this. March 23rd, he passed away in New York, which is part of why my family was so separated. And my mom had died when I was young, 28, and both times, again, my faith is not something that I practice on a daily basis. I'm not a particularly religious person, but if there's one time when you're going to connect back, that's it. And I remember how much comfort we got when my mother died, and we had to find a rabbi. We didn't know anybody. At that point, my parents were living in one city and I was living in another city. Nobody was connected. But we found somebody to help us with the service for my mother. And then when my father-in-law died and my husband was up in New York with his family, I reached out to the cantor of the Chaveth Hesed synagogue. My family is connected to that, and my daughter's working on her bat mitzvah. And we had a meeting with her just to go over my daughter's bat mitzvah work. And I said, could we change that to a memorial service? Because my father-in-law died. And this was at the very beginnings when nobody really knew how Zoom worked. And so she did a wonderful service for us through Zoom so that we could all be together. And my goodness, that gave us incredible comfort. And for my husband as well, when I first mentioned it, he was like, now I've got so many things to do and I'm trying to handle this and I'm stressed. And I was like, just a half an hour, let's just do this. And at the end, he was so moved that coming together with a prayer that has been said for thousands of years, who's been said for our parents, our grandparents, that kind of connection to a community across space and throughout time, that is powerful. And to be able to do it in this crazy time when we are so separated, even more powerful.
Thank you. And I'm wondering, and this is an open question to either one of you, or my colleague Matt Hartley might even want to chime in. It's interesting in one sense during the COVID crisis that life has really slowed down. Kids are at home. We're spending a lot of time with our families, but also in good ways and in tragic ways. Life continues to go on. And so we have the COVID crisis, we have continuing political acrimony, we have just the horrific images coming out of the death of George Floyd. And I'm just wondering, how does this downtime give you more quality time to talk to kids, family members, siblings about, really the challenges that we're facing in the world? If
you want, I can just actually, I have been blessed also, not just to talk just with families and my family and my kids, but also through the organizations we work with, we try to build a global solidarity by interviewing our community leaders from different backgrounds, refugees, immigrants, lawyers, accountants, teachers. We want to check on them, but in the same time, listen to how they are coping with COVID-19 and how they are going through it with their family. And to be honest, every time I am down, and I had actually interview with over 20 of them, and all the interviews are recorded on YouTube now. But every time I am down and I listen to one of their stories and the struggle that they go through, I wake myself and I'm like, hey, Besma, who you are to really complain. I mean, I get tired by the end of the day and I don't want to talk to anyone, and I don't even have patience to my kids. But I after hearing them sharing their gratitude and also sharing how their community coping with COVID-19, and how, I mean, I was walking one time in my neighborhood and I saw one of the Istanbul Cultural Center members. He was driving with his kids and have so much food in his car. And I'm like, where are you going? And he said, well, I am dropping food to the homeless. And he's in U. When I spoke to him, he was in U to town. So because the last time I spoke to him, he was just trying to find resources and try to find a community. And now he is giving back. And so when I see these kind of action, to be honest with you, I go back to my family and my husband and my kids and say, hey, listen, if you start complaining, hear what's happening. So we should not really complain about anything. We have roofs, we have home, we have food. Yes, I am privileged too that I still work from home. There are many people who lost jobs, and not just lost jobs. Some people have started losing home because they cannot even pay for their rent. So it's real. It's so real. And I think at this time, we need everyone to support everyone so we could go through it together.
And as I give the other two of you an opportunity to answer that, I do want to acknowledge the comments coming in on our YouTube chat. Words of condolences to you, Leslie, and your family, and the loss of your father-in-law from Mary. And then Basma and Leslie, you all have been named rock stars. So that's from my colleague Nancy, and Matt and I would agree totally. So thanks for so many folks who are participating via our YouTube live. But Matt, go ahead.
Thanks, Kyle. Well, some of you had a chance to meet my daughter last week, who was with me for our sharing of prayers and reflections. And she and I had a chance to have a conversation today. And it was to start out with about the bad news that's going on in the world. And we were talking a lot about racism and George Floyd being murdered, and that's heavy stuff. But I know that I have to talk to her about this, that as a Christian myself, and I know as people of faith or people of conscience, we know that we have to raise up our next generation, whether it's our children or our students, to have a conscience about many things, and especially becoming anti-racist. And so, but we talked about the good news. You know, we talked about that there's going to be the activists have planned a drive-by protest, a caravan protest this week. We talked about all of the people that spoke up, that sent emails to City Council about the Human Rights Ordinance. So just affirming that our LGBTQ neighbors in the community should have equal rights to everyone. And apparently there were just an incredible amount of comments that were that were read over the Zoom City Council meeting. So there's some good news as we face these dark things, that people are standing up and saying, We have to make this a better world.
Leslie, I give you the last word tonight.
So I'm suffering a little bit with some allergies, so my voice is even less beautiful than it is normally. But I thought maybe, can I end with a prayer, with a blessing?
That would be wonderful.
Okay, so this is the a Jewish blessing for healing that we say regularly on our Friday night services, and most Jewish prayers are sung. So I'm going to attempt, although my voice is scratchy. Mi sheberach avotenu mekor habracha limotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen.
And Leslie and Basma, you have been a blessing to us. Thanks for being a part of Theology Thursday when we started planning this several weeks ago. In the midst of all that's going on in our world, we wanted this to be a positive place. And with the two of you leading us tonight, we've certainly lived up to that. So thank you, Matt, and for everyone that's been a part of Theology Thursday. Again, a partnership between the Interfaith Center of Northeast Florida, the Istanbul Cultural Center, and OneJax. And we hope you have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you here next Thursday night.